we collectively, as facilitators, trainers, and me and Dan as developers of the work, we decide what to do publicly with people and what not to do because we're working with emotional repression. And if you open up that can of worms, but someone isn't skilled or can't regulate themselves, well, it can become uncomfortable. So and once you're skillful though, the skills regulate your system and transmute, clear out the repression. So it's so worth it to do it. But how you come into it is so important. We all come into it. The 3D work is the repression work. We all come into it differently. Some people go straight to 3D work, which you can only get if you go into the members area. That's our most advanced work. That's the work that everybody's raving about. If you hear people talk about this work, it's that 3D. And then there's 2D, which was the version of the work before that. And 2D is great too. It's actually, some people say nobody says it's as good as the 3D work because the 3D work was just designed for repression. But the 2D work is good and potent, and it can also be used to discover some things that you didn't know about your experience. It can really change your practice and your life to discover some things in 2D. And then the caveat with this, I'm going to do some 2D inquiry with you today. The caveat is that there are bypasses in it. And if you only did 2D work, it would be a bypass. And that's true of any 2D work. So 2D is where we prompt something up that would not otherwise arise, but all we do then is rest with it in awareness and allow it. Whereas in 3D, in our members area, in our mentorship programs, we're teaching people to rapid fire that in a particular way that makes the mind-body connection conscious with repression. And that's what's transmuting the energy. But here in 2D, we don't do rapid fire. We witness like the other teachings and practices of Eastern practice, and that's why there's a bypass in it. Because what arises is what's safe compared to what we've buried. So if we just sit and witness, then we're just witnessing what our system has produced to keep us safe from what we've buried and to get love. It doesn't go deep enough. But 2D starts to get us to the places that we need to go. It's just that we can't stay in 2D, or it's a bypass. With that said, I invite you, for the first time in a long time, I am doing inquiry publicly, although I did it yesterday. But before that, we're going to do some inquiry together, but let me explain what this is. This is not inquiry to, embody awakening suddenly or anything like that. It's mostly, there's going to be some processing, you'll see, but which means like inquiry and seeing things for sure and feeling some freedom, perhaps some of you. Some freedom, yeah. Nothing miraculous. I always say that because the more you come seeking something anywhere you go, right, the more that's driven by the repression. Because you are the awakeness already. You just don't know it, right? Showing up here, not knowing what you are. It's okay. That's why you came, I guess. Or we don't know what we are. We're suffering, whatever that is. Well, speaking of not knowing what we are and suffering, I want to do inquiry mainly today on discovering what the source of our unmet needs are. This occurred to me the other day, this inquiry, and of course when I develop an inquiry, or me and Dan do, we do it with people mainly in the training and mentorship programs first, in the members area too. And then, so the rapid fire version of this is being done there, the 3D version, the more advanced. But here I can get you guys started on this because I think many of you will appreciate this. It'll give you some insight you didn't have as to a few things, why you're suffering presently in relationships, where that comes from, but also how a lot of the suffering in present relationships is because we don't seem to be getting our needs met, and then where that comes from, and how that's connected to something in the past, which is really just our body right here. There's no past. There's nothing outside this presence, but in this presence, there's a body that stores the past. and the emotions. And that's where we're going to find, I think, a connection, maybe even directly for some of you, between emotional repression, which then makes us grow up as if we didn't get our needs met by others, like, mom and dad. But the truth of it is we didn't meet our own needs when we were kids, meaning no one taught us how. No one was conscious enough to teach us how to feel and express our emotions, so we had to bury some of them. And in burying some of them, that created a sense of deficiency, right? Emotional deficiency. We buried these emotions. They're missing. They're lacking. They're not here. So that sense of deficiency, then we look to our parents. We couldn't feel and express our true emotions, so a false self comes up and we look for our parents to meet our needs. We're feeling lacking. We need their love. We need their attention. We need their approval. We just need that to grow up, first of all. That's how we, they raise us. That's part of it, of course. We learn to get their love and attention. But we become so programmed into that now we're suffering as adults. And it's still about getting love and approval and attention from others, which is like a transference from childhood. It's still going on within us, and we're suffering. But we're going to trace it back in inquiry to the emotions that we couldn't feel and express as children. Just that conditioning, how it's held in the body. And I think you'll see that these buried emotions in the body created this sense of lack or deficiency, and a sense that our needs weren't met when we were kids. And then as adults, we're looking for those needs to be met in other people, because we still have the same sense of deficiency or lack coming from the same emotional deficiency or repression in our bodies. And that when we see this in our lives, and as we're trying to get our needs met, or we are getting our needs met, or wanting to, we instead go into inquiry on the repression that produces that compulsion to get our needs met by others, or to suffer when we don't, then that suffering can go away. And we're taking care of our own needs. We're being ourselves. We're experiencing freedom. I just had a podcast, by the way. I'm going to take you through inquiry today, but I did a podcast that talks about all this. If you want more context on why we would want to do this inquiry or how this is tied to everything, my podcast episode is called Our Unmet Needs and the Healing That's Available When We Meet Them Ourselves. And it goes through the whole process of how we develop as kids and how we can't possibly do anything but suffer as adults because of how we're raised and how our parents and we are unconscious. And then it provides a pathway just like this, but it talks about it. Okay, are you ready? Sit back or lie down, get comfortable, away from people and distractions, and then just begin breathing and watching your breath. I hope you're already breathing. Please be breathing already. If you are, watch the breath. Start watching it from awareness. In through the nose, down past the lungs, into the diaphragm, and then back out the mouth. Just resting and allowing that breath to be as it is and noticing it with each breath. And that's to bring awareness down into the body and to withdraw attention from the mind. Just resting more in being or presence. As we begin here, there may be thoughts that are happening in your experience. Just turn towards those to hear them, as if you're just curious, but you're not identified. You're just hearing them and allowing them to be heard, or allowing them to be there until they're not anymore. Or any other thoughts. Allowing sensations to be there. So, inquiry on our unmet needs. I want you to look at somebody in your current life that you have some emotion or trigger with, like you just feel something around them and something isn't resolved. Pull that person into awareness. And just rest and see the person or feel their energy at the same time just resting as the awareness that you are. This image of the person is happening in awareness. Oh, and please grab something to write down on a piece of paper and a pen or on your phone. We're going to take notes. So if you have to go get your notepad, go do that and come back. Pause the recording. Then we're going to come back and sit quietly with awareness in the inner body, just looking at someone in your life that you have some energy around. And here's your inquiry. I don't need anything from them or from him or her. Feel into your body. Don't think about it. Don't sit and think about the answer. Bring awareness down into the body and just feel if there's a energy first. I don't need anything from her. If your body's but for now, when we say, I don't need anything, the body's saying yes. If you don't have that, the body doesn't do anything. Now, though, we want to say, just like you're asking Siri, show me what I need from them. Feeling down into your body. Don't just take it into a story. I need them to say that they're sorry and that they did this and that yesterday they'll do and tomorrow they'll do this. That's too factual. It's not emotional. It's not what you really need from them. So feel down into your body and see if that is, I need their attention. Or show me what I need from them and just hear what comes up. Is it love, approval, acknowledgement, attention? Okay, so write that down. You can even put the person's name down. Joe, hyphen, I need Joe's attention. Important information. So what we're going to do now is put the piece of paper and pen aside and pull up the people from the past before Joe, or before whoever that is. Like your mom and dad and siblings and earlier relationships, the earlier ones. And then just let them be here in awareness, almost as if they're in the room with you, but you know that they're just, I hope you know, they're just images and energy and awareness here. See and feel them all. And then whatever you needed from Joe or whoever, turn that into an inquiry here. It'd be like, if it was attention, it would be like this. I don't need their attention. Just trust the body, feel into the body. I don't need their attention. Trust the body again, feel into it. See if there's something there too, similar, like, yeah, I do. You can even say, is this energy a yes or a no? And listen. I don't need mom and dad's attention, and like the stomach clenches or something, but that's saying yes, you needed it, but you might not hear it. If you say, is this energy a yes or a no? And then see what happens. So most likely, many of you have found, yeah, I need their attention. So just write under the thing about Joe on the piece of paper, write down mom and dad and whoever else. Just call them VIPs. Very important people is what we call them here. VIPs hyphen, or is it hyphen or dash? Whatever. Backslash. I need their attention. So there's a common pattern. I think that's an easy way to connect with something that everybody can relate to, our needs and how they don't get met. I mean, many of us, but also connecting, because science tells us that our triggers are one part present and one part past. So there you have it on the page, at least the beginning of that. But that has to do with a certain need. I just use the example of attention. Yours could be anything. It could be even a need for safety, anything. But whatever it is now, we want to look to see, but what is the root of that, so that we can bring inquiry to the root of it when we discover, because we don't want to mull around in the things that are not the root, right? And this feels close to the root and perhaps is part of the root. Of course it is. Yeah, I don't want to hide the ball. It is. Needing attention is like a trauma response coming very directly from the body into what we call emotional repression, which is, I'll explain that in a second. But yeah, it's very connected to our suffering, what you've written on the page. But we're going to go deeper than that, because the real root is emotional, but I want you to discover it. So close your eyes again and keep up or bring back up the people from the past, your VIPs, not that current person that we started with. And then just rest as if your VIPs are here in awareness. There's Dad. He needs to comb his hair. There's Mom. She's got that dress on. There's my brother and sister. There's my... See, put that up. Are those people up? Okay, here we're going to do a rev up first, which is just like revving up an engine. And rev up just means repeating a reverse inquiry. So here you take what you have on the page. The example I'm giving is, I need their attention. And you go back to the people in the past and you say, several times in a row, and check your body each time in between, I don't need their attention. Feel the body, especially where there's contraction or even feeling into chronic pain areas or area. I don't need their attention. Check into the body again. See that, feel that, yes, I do. One more time. I don't need their attention. Feel that, yes. And then now, while looking at them and feeling into the body, say, I'm not angry at them. And see if similar or that contraction responds. One more time. I'm not angry at them. See if there's a response in the body. That body response is the repression. If you're not angry at them, nothing would happen here. Nothing. But if you're angry at them and you've stored it since childhood, that would be just a contraction. That's what they call in trauma research or trauma literature, frozen emotion. Thomas Hubel calls it, but it's like self-contraction or body contraction. You might just call it your stomach. It's just the sense of physical separation, was what non-dual teachers call it. But there it is. And now you know, even though you don't know because it's repressed, that if you had a contraction there, the need for attention is connected to anger. You know at least that. So write down that, even if you don't know anything else, my need for attention is connected to anger. That's important to know, and it's not coming from me. I gave you the inquiries, your body responded. And I'm telling you, if you didn't have anger repression, your body wouldn't do anything. Now, if just right there, if you said, I'm not angry at them, and you actually felt anger, then that's different. That's not repressed. Like if you actually just felt anger because you can feel and express anger, okay, then you're not going to work with that here, because we only work with repression here. The unconscious, the contraction in the body. So hold on tight. But for those who felt that contraction that was similar to the needing their attention contraction, that's anger repression. So on your page, you want to put down anger repression is connected to this need, or you say needing attention. And just building on simple insights. And then put the pen down. These are your discoveries, not mine. Trust your body here. Yeah, by the way, those who actually might have felt anger there might not be anger repressors. They might repress like sadness or hurt or something. But those who felt that contraction there, let's talk about what that means. When we're kids, one of our needs is, how do you say this? I think one of our most basic needs is to know and be and feel ourselves and to be conscious. That's our basic need, I think. And of course, survival. But in an unconscious world, when you have unconscious parents, you can't feel and allow all your emotions. You know, when we're kids, we can't just get angry at dad or show hurt or sadness in some houses. So those emotions have to be buried. And so our basic need of being able to feel and allow everything and know ourselves isn't met by ourselves or by our parents, you know, helping us in some way. And they may be the reason that we can't feel and express stuff and that we've buried emotions, or it may feel that way. So they didn't meet our needs and we didn't meet our needs. The need to just be ourselves, be conscious, actually. We don't even know this on earth, that this is a basic need of every being, is to be conscious and awake to their experience and not suffer. That's just as important or close to got to eat and survive, because suffering sucks. I mean, it's good to survive physically and suffer. I guess that's better than dying. But can we shoot for a little bit higher goal than just I'm surviving? How about no longer suffering? And we meet that goal in the here and now always by making the unconscious conscious and awareness here. The story of time is a story coming from repression. It's trying to distract us, the seeking story. This is all done in awareness. But I just want you to see now, we have to use the mind a little bit here to make some connections, because we're unconscious around things. I just wanted you to understand you had a basic need that wasn't met to feel your own, and also, of course, to feel, and also to seem, why wouldn't you want attention, for example, or love from people now if you know that you didn't get it from your parents, because you saw that in inquiry. When you said, I don't need their love, you obviously do if you had energy on that, which means on some level you didn't get that. You feel that, right? So unmet needs right there. They didn't pay attention. They didn't acknowledge me. They didn't validate my experience. They didn't love me. They didn't care for me. They weren't present to me. And the reason we need that as kids, this is a basic need, is that we need to know ourselves and to be able to feel and allow our emotions to be able to be conscious and function well, not just survive and not suffer. That's our need, and that's not met. The need for attention from them and love comes kind of secondary for me, because we're not meeting our own needs here. They're not helping us do that. Of course we need their love and attention. We don't know ourselves growing up, and we're bonded to them because of it in our unconsciousness with them, their unconsciousness. So that we just did is called discovery, where we just discover the root of something. And see, if this is, and we're going to get to hurt or sadness in a second, and the discovery process. Now, this is just for people who have contractions there in that inquiry process, and then felt a contraction there with, I'm not angry, because there is the anger frozen. That's anger repression. So then I gave you the context that you may or may not be able to see already, which is if that basic emotion can't be met by you when you're a kid because it wasn't safe, then of course you needed mom and dad for that. Had you been able to feel and allow everything, you wouldn't still be stuck in the need for that, whatever that is here as an adult. That comes from you couldn't meet your basic needs as a kid, and they couldn't, and they didn't. And I want you to make that connection there before we go over to hurt and sadness, just in case some of you, many of you probably, did find anger repression there. That's what I mean by unmet needs in that podcast. It's just the need comes from, hey, I can't feel what I've buried here. I'm not conscious. The basic need to be this conscious being and to know my experience and to know myself and to trust myself, to be the authority for my experience, is not here on earth for us the way that we, the way that we do it. Grow up. And let's go over to hurt rather than anger. I want you to go back to what you've written on the page about needs. So maybe this need, maybe some of you wrote down, I need his love. I need my husband's love. This is the current thing. And then I want you to bring your VIPs up and just feel it again, experience it again. I don't need their love. Feel that contraction again. I don't need their love. And then I want you to say, while you're feeling into that same contraction, I'm not hurt by them. Feel into the body. See if it's a yes or a no. You may even have to ask, is that energy a yes or a no? And listen. I'm not hurt by them. See, if you're actually feeling the emotion of hurt or crying, or not even crying, but feeling, then that's not repression. There may be some there, but that's not really it. You might be an anger repressor, for example, right? You might have had contraction on the anger exercise. But here, if you're feeling a contraction on hurt, you do have that, and that need for love for your husband is coming because there's this buried hurt that probably doesn't feel entirely like hurt right now. It feels like your physical body, like it's just responding. That's how repression feels, and that's that sense of separation. And then there's that sense of deficiency and lack coming from, again, the emotion that's deficient, or we're deficient in the emotion that we buried. Write down on your page that regardless of whether you had anger repression written down, you're also going to write down that this need comes from the buried hurt. In whatever way you want to write that down, now that you know what we're doing, it just means I couldn't feel and express the hurt as a kid. I needed mom and dad to provide the space for that, show me how to do that or make it safe for that. And it didn't happen. And now I'm discovering at age 33 here on this video that I've buried this hurt and that I need this love for my current husband. And that's somehow connected to that hurt. And I'm seeing it. And I'll tell you what, if you're fogging out right now, or if you're confused, that's exactly what your nervous system wants, to keep you safe from what's buried. So what I would do is just go away, click away right now, and regulate yourself and come back and hear it again. Because it's worth hearing, and you're worth hearing it. Because if you don't get into the buried stuff, this unmet need may just continue, and there's suffering in it. And let's go with sadness. So first, just looking at the VIPs, bringing awareness into the body again. And just resting, even if you have to anchor your attention on the breath for a moment. Because when I give context and explain things, you might have to think about them to kind of understand. And then now we go back into experience. You watch your breath, bring your breath down into the body or your awareness, and look at your VIPs and say, I don't need whatever your need is on the paper, I don't need them to acknowledge me. Feel if there's a contraction there, of course. I don't need them to acknowledge me. And then, I'm not sad. Feel into the body. I'm not sad. As you look at them and feel into the body. But if you're feeling sadness, see, the actual emotion, that's not a repression. And we work at the level of repression of the frozen emotions, which are now contraction. So if there's sadness, I really wouldn't put that on your page, as being a repression. You might deal with that in some way here, of course, but not that way. We'll show you a different way. For now, we just want to work with, is the sadness repressed? Was that more of like a contraction? And now you can go back to your VIPs, whatever you've written down on the page as a repression, go back to the expression of it or to it. So come to your VIPs and say, if I found this anger repression, I might want to say, I can get angry at them and feel into the body. I can express anger to them. If that was the repression that you found, and just note, how the body might say no to that in different ways without saying it, because it's repression. It just shuts you down around that. Because when you don't have anger repression and you say, I can get angry at them, nothing happens. It's like, yeah, I'm not angry right now, but I'm not storing it because I don't have repression. But yeah, I could get angry at them if the circumstance, it's like, okay, yeah. But with repression, it just isn't like that. And then staying with your VIPs, in case you had hurt or sadness repression, try that out, the expression of it. So I can express sadness to them. See if your body says no, or hurt. I can cry. I can express sadness to them. See if that no is there on expression. And that's not anything new to write down, because repression involves not only, it's not safe to feel something, but it's not safe to express it. And then there's the unmet need, because I call these natural resources, emotions that we've buried. All emotions need all of our resources online in awareness to be healthy and to not suffer. But when that doesn't happen when we're kids, then here we are with these bodies that hold these emotions as contraction. And then we're looking for these needs to be met in our current relationships. And we're suffering because we can't get these needs met from the outside. We have to go back in and feel what it was never safe to feel, with inquiry process that makes it safe to feel that. Safe, but you don't want to use safe as a way to avoid going deep. You'll see what I mean when you get here. Into the 3D work, I mean. This is awakening and energy work, as you'll see together, or embodiment. Now, you know so much more maybe than you did when you started on that page, and I think that's really important to have that insight if it clicks. And frankly, it's so important that if it doesn't click yet, watch this video a few times until it just clicks with you. Maybe you put it in your own words, and then it clicks for you that our unmet needs is that we haven't been able to meet certain emotions. They're buried, they're missing, we're deficient in them. And then we have a sense of deficiency or lack and separation coming from that because we couldn't meet these needs. And of course, we're suffering and then looking for others to meet those needs, including teachers. And nobody can do it because we have to do it ourselves by going back. Now, that's where the 3D inquiry comes. What can we do today to do a little bit of inquiry in 2D, which is where the bypass is, but it can help. I don't want to always just talk about the bypass, but I also want to make sure that people understand that the inquiry that I'm doing publicly is not our inquiry. It is, but it's not the most potent form of it, 3D. It's a good way to bridge from whatever practice you're doing out there to the 3D work, is to sit with me here for a moment as I take you through some 2D inquiry on needs not being met. Sit quietly and just come back to resting and allowing what's here. Attention on your breath if you need to. However you sort of anchor into just noticing, being and noticing what arises and falls. Okay, so we're going to come back to the current person that triggered you. We're going to do what we did was discovery on the root of things. Now we're going to do some processing and actual inquiry. Pull that person up, sit quietly with your eyes closed. We'll start with this inquiry. Well, it's important to take the insights, though, that we've learned before we inquire. Otherwise, we're just going to bypass. See, if we don't know the root of suffering and gear our inquiry to that in some way, we're going away from the repression that creates suffering. And that's the bypass. So I want to show you how I'm going to take you to it in 2D here with this person up. If we know now, those of us who have anger repression, that this is behind our, even if we can't click in our minds, we felt it in our bodies, that this is behind this thing with our current person. But it looks like a need isn't being met. But because of what we've seen and written on the page, we know that, at least intuitively, if we could express anger, then maybe we wouldn't suffer so much or have our needs met by this person. Maybe we don't even fully grok that, but because of the inquiry discovery process we did today, there's some inkling of that, and we want to discover it or, explore it more. How would we do that without going to the 3D work, which goes straight to the anger repression, for example? We can look at the person if we have anger repression and say this, the current person, show me what would happen if I expressed anger to them. Or show me what would happen if I spoke up or spoke my truth to them. And then just as you're resting as awareness, notice the first thing that comes up. It's like asking Siri, but here Siri is your own consciousness. Something comes up, immediately notice it. Maybe it's words that you hear or see, maybe an image and awareness. I want you to really notice that and stay with those words or image or images and just stay with them for as long as they're here. If anything, welcome them. Because to just sit and rest ignores the fact that unconsciously there's a lot of resistance here. You might feel it in your body. So welcoming the words in your own way, like welcoming an animal towards you, very lovingly. But here it's words or an image or energy. Keep welcoming it. You can't go wrong by welcoming it because of the resistance. Until it just falls away on its own. We're not trying to get it to go away. It's all about welcoming and making things conscious and just being. Stay with it. Allow it. And then if it does fall away, rest as the awareness that remains. Awareness in the body too, everywhere. Open, diffused awareness here for a moment. Or maybe you still have something up, that's fine. Stay with it. I can't guide 200 people with different experiences, but let's come back to this. The current person, bring them up. Same as when we started. Show me what will happen if I express anger to them or if I speak my truth to them. Another round here. Whatever comes up, immediately you don't want to just feel the energy that comes up because that's a bypass because there's a mind-body connection. So if you're just feeling energy, then I want you to feel into the energy and say, if this energy had a voice, what would it say right now? And then just listen. And allow, immediately notice and allow what comes. Keep it in awareness like you're hearing it, like you want to hear it, and welcome it. Or if it's an image, like you want to see it from awareness, and welcome it. Be curious about it. It's okay, trust me. I've been developing inquiry for so long. I'm telling you it's okay. Trust that for now, because you'll notice the more you welcome something, you are nothing. You're just like awakeness. So as you welcome something, you're just reducing the resistance that's already there. That's unconscious. Continue welcoming it, including the energy, fully, like you're just an open field, and you're welcoming this animal out of the forest. The energy is the forest, and you can hear the thoughts. The animal is the thought, or the words, or the image. You welcome that until it just falls away, all of it, naturally, and rest. And if you're kind of dysregulated now or anxious, just take 2 fingers and start tapping on your forehead and notice the sound of the tapping and the sensation of it at first. This is only if you're dysregulated. If you're fine, then just rest and be for a moment. But as you notice that tapping, actually take your attention off the tapping while still tapping. The tapping goes on, but I want you to watch your breath now while the tapping is happening. Follow the breath in through the nose. While the tapping is going on, stay with the breath in the body and then back out a few times in a row with the tapping going the whole time. Only for those people who are experiencing a little bit of leftover anxiety, because I just want you to see here, I'm not trying to dysregulate. And until you have skill, it can happen. We want to help you with the skill. Okay. I want to just go back and look at what we did there. You can take that inquiry with you. It's a softer version of repression inquiry. It's not a bypass, or if it's a bypass, it's not as much of a bypass as a lot of stuff out there, because it's actually linking the need that isn't being met to the repression there, if it's anger, and it's bringing up some of the fears around expressing that anger. So you can start to become conscious of what's driving this here currently. Now notice when I went back, I didn't say, when I went back to inquiry, I didn't necessarily stay with, I don't need their love, if that was the need. You could though. See, when you do inquiry in 2D, you could do this reverse inquiry, which isn't a positive affirmation, right? It's you say something and see if your body objects. So there's kind of two inquiries here. It's, if you wanted to, I don't need their attention. And then you rest and allow what comes up. Or show me what happens if I express anger to them, or express the emotion that's repressed. See, the one that you found that's in the contraction. And then witnessing what comes up. Those two inquiries are good to get started with this work before you get to our 3D work. The 3D work is what accelerates the transmuting of that sense of separation and deficiency that is the repression deep in the body. But this will show you the consciousness that's involved in that and how you're holding yourself back with people. And then that contraction's involved, and there's this need to get their approval or love because of that repression. You'll have that insight more and more as you do this inquiry. We only do 2D inquiry like this to prepare people for 3D inquiry, which is what I'm doing now. Okay, so how about hurt repressors or sadness repressors? Same thing. Let's take you through it. And again, so if you, okay, I was just working with anger repressors, those that can't really feel anger, but the contraction says that they're angry, deep buried anger. For those folks, they might actually be able to feel some of them sadness or hurt a little bit more easily, or it might feel safer. My mic was messing up there. It might feel safer to feel sadness or hurt. So when they do this one, they might actually feel sadness or hurt. That's fine. For now, just allow it. But I want to talk to the people who really found that evidence of repression of sadness or hurt in the contraction in our discovery process. So for you all, coming back to the current person, the person that we're working with to start, and then just, we'll start this way. I don't need their attention, or whatever your need was. Reverse inquiry. And then immediately notice what comes up. And welcome. Be conscious or awake to not only the words or image, but also the energy with it, and noticing, but you can't see this, but you are this, noticing this is happening within you as awareness, you being the awareness, allowing that fully. Until it's gone. We don't want to push it away, anything. These are like lost children, these thoughts with energy. If you found a lost or abandoned child, you would welcome the child towards you. Pushing it away is just more of the same abandonment or disownment of our experience. Stay with. Until that naturally falls away. Maybe some more stuff comes. Allow that. Allow whatever comes. Whatever you see, immediately notice and allow it. As if you're curious about it. Because at a very deep level, you're resisting it. So the curiosity towards it reduces that resistance, the welcoming, even loving it. The thought, the words, and the image, and the energy. Right? I don't need their love, or whatever it is. One more time. Immediately notice what comes up. And then, whenever you're ready, I want you to go to, even while this is up if you want, show me what will happen if I express hurt to them, if you're a hurt repressor. Or show me what will happen if I express sadness to them, if you found the contraction on the sadness inquiry. Just show me, and then immediately notice what comes up, and let's stay with this now. Same energy producing different thoughts here. Show me what will happen. Welcome each one. That's what it's doing. It's showing it to you. You, the awareness, you're just seeing it. And the mere act of observing brings insight because it shows you, well, that what you're seeing is happening in you. It couldn't be you if you can see it. Well, just stay with it then and welcome it. The more you welcome it, the more that it softens the resistance to it that's unconscious there, just staying with. And one more time. What would happen if I cried in front of them? Show me what would happen. Show me what would happen if I expressed hurt to them. And then that's with your awareness in the body, and then immediately notice what comes up in mind and body, and if it don't just rest with energy, because there's a mind-body connection. If there's just energy, say, if this energy had a voice, what would it say? And then immediately notice and allow what comes. And now we're just going to wind down with a tool called mining, which is just to sort of settle some of the energy that we've already stirred up without particularly stirring up anything else around deep buried emotions. I want you just to let your VIPs and that person go away, and it's just you here, and you're listening to my voice, and you're noticing, being aware, bringing awareness down into the body, noticing what arises. And as you feel into the energy, any that we've stirred up that's still there, I want you to say, if this energy could speak right now, what would it say? And then immediately notice what comes and welcome. Make sure that there's a thought there. If there isn't, it just means you're unconscious. There's energy there, but it's not telling you anything. It's unconscious, so you have to ask into the energy. What would you say if you had a voice? Or, what does this energy mean about me? And either way, you'll get something relevant. Immediately notice, allow it. That thought's connected to the energy. Allowing both. And you continue allowing. And even if the thought wants to hang out there, can you let it hang out there? Can you welcome it to hang out there even more? If there's resistance, can you welcome that to hang out more? Welcome it. All of it. And then again, if that thought or that stuff falls away and there's still some energy stirred up, one more time. Show me what this energy would say if it had a voice. Another inquiry question here is, how would I describe this energy to myself? And maybe what comes up is it's too much or whatever for you. But you want to hear that and stay with the hearing of that, or see the thought if it's a visual and stay with the seeing of it from awareness the whole time it's here. And not turn away from it. That's the repression. That's the unconsciousness turning away. Stay awake to something while it's here, including the energy with it, welcoming it. Because there's already resistance in unconscious programming that's not here in awareness right now. That's your body. And that body's connected to that thought, see? So it's like wants to identify with it, and there's resistance to some buried emotion there. So we're just allowing what's here very lightly at the end, just to kind of soften your experience and let the stuff that got stirred up settle. So allowing everything that's here until it wants to fall away naturally. Even welcoming more thoughts to arise. Maybe one wants to come and another one. Let those be. Stay with them until they're not there. And then just noticing, actually doing, for those who are still a little bit dysregulated or just want to sort of settle a little bit more, then go back to tapping and notice the tapping sound and sensation first on the forehead with 2 fingers. And then take your attention away from the tapping while you continue tapping, and then just watch your breath. In through the nose, down into the diaphragm. and out through the mouth. A couple more times of breathing. Okay. And then taking your hand off your forehead, just noticing any energy that remains, but not focused on that, and more having like a diffused, open view of the moment, even with your eyes open, like broad, open, boundaryless space or presence to the degree that you experience that now. And if not, whatever is arising, letting that be. It's so important that whatever is arising, to allow it. So to recap about what we did today, because it's important, is that we don't just pick up tools here and start inquiring. So we don't pick up reverse inquiry and we just say, okay, if I believe I'm a crappy person, I'm just going to reverse that. I'm not a crappy person. This is Kiloby's method. Yes, I am. And just watching things, that's really not this at all. What we do is we do discovery first to discover where's our suffering coming from. And what we find is it's the really strong reaction in our experiences in the body, in these contractions and just the sense of separation. Of course, stories come up and suffering and narratives and all that, but notice that we stayed in the body and the body responded to these inquiries as if to tell us, yes, I need their love and attention and approval, and yes, I'm angry at them. And yes, I need their attention and I'm hurt, but we couldn't feel it. It's like it's a contraction for those of us who experience that. And that's the repression right there. And that repression has conditioning in it that creates all your suffering. As science says, emotional repression creates a lot of suffering of different kinds, even, well, a lot. So understanding that, we like to understand that first, and we want to understand where my need seeking is coming from in current relationship before I start inquiring. Otherwise, I'm just going to bypass because my system seeks safety, even if I tell myself on the conscious level that I want to be free. The nervous system is running the thing, not the story of you or your thoughts. Those just keep us safe. And get us love and approval and seem to help us survive as a separate self. I just want to say a few more words about this, and again invite you to the podcast episode that is Our Unmet Needs. How I discovered this is my chronic pain had anger repression. That's what created it. I came to discover that my system had created the chronic pain and all my suffering in my life to stay safe from the buried anger and the fear of that anger and the fear of being myself, you could say. Truly being yourself. And if you're saying right now, what is that? Forget it. It's your mind trying to keep you safe. Go into inquiry. I just, like a lot of people, I just wanted to stop being in chronic nerve pain. You just want to stop suffering. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because we are suffering, many of us. And even us on the spiritual path who've had spiritual shifts and experiences and all that, we can still suffer with disease and chronic pain, which is often, whether we know it or not, connected to the emotional system, as science says. So suffering can just continue in so many different forms. And until we really embody presence, that's going to happen, is what I've learned. Because it really comes down to not just recognizing the presence that we are. Of course, that's important. And I suggest a daily investigation by people doing this work of the awareness that's already here. And not just during inquiry, but throughout the day, just checking into what's the noticing of that. But that's just the beginning here because, for God's sakes, look at us teachers getting sick or cheating on our spouse or something, those are unprocessed emotions and unmet needs in many cases. But so we shouldn't be guiding you unless we deal with our stuff. And a lot of this is not about recognizing presence. That's just the beginning. It's about getting our needs met. We have to do it ourselves, and we need that presence to begin exploring that, because our mind, the ego, is created from the repression. So that story you have to look from awareness. And then, of course, you can get to the repression in the body. And again, we haven't even done any of that work today. That's the 3D work. Continue doing these inquiries, though, we did, because they're good, and they'll lead you to deeper insights about the root of suffering and more freedom, actually. Especially if you do it the way that I did it with you, like really taking care to just be here and allow everything, and not using inquiry to try to get somewhere. If you use inquiry to try to get somewhere a lot, I would stop and get with somebody who's skillful with this work and help you with that, because that would just intensify some of the suffering that you stir up. If that's there, it can. And you want to stir stuff up because we have repression driving suffering. You just want to be skillful with it. So the good thing here is that people come with some sort of suffering, and maybe people just come because they're suffering, but there can be something that you focus on, but you have to connect it, don't you, to whatever it's connected to. So let's say you come here and you're seeking enlightenment. Is that at all related to unmet needs? Possibly. Very possibly. Most likely, yes. And here's how. We're looking for ourselves on the enlightenment search. We're just looking for what we are. Why don't we know what we are? Because our needs weren't met as children. Not only we didn't recognize the presence that we are, but we didn't feel and allow all our emotions. We stored them, and then that produced false self, and we're on a mad search for what we are. Some of us were or are. What about your relationship difficulties? Is that from the same thing? Well, just look, like if we need attention, love, approval from the people around us, that comes from a sense of lack or deficiency. That deficiency comes from the emotional repression, including that sense of separation. You can feel the contraction yourself. You don't need me to tell you where the sense of separation and lack is and what it's like. But I gave you some inquiry to show you what's connected to it, which is anger or other repression, hurt, repression, and then the seeking of the needs, right? Which comes because of that sense of separation and lack that's there. So that insight is there, and that's going to steer you well in inquiry if you understand. You've got to get to the repression every time if you want to free yourself from the shackles of constantly needing people to give you something. Love, attention, approval, whatever, or hear you. Here's another one where people aren't, he didn't hear me. Well, then what I say is speak louder, because what's probably happening is that you might not be feeling and expressing your emotions fully. And when we don't, I mean really authentically, and when we don't, we have to identify with a sense of deficiency or lack, like there's something missing with me, you know? But that's the missing emotion. Those are the buried emotions. So sometimes when we're not feeling heard, it's because we aren't hearing ourselves. We have emotions that are buried and they're not being felt and expressed. And it creates that sense of lack within us, but shows up as they're not hearing me. And you know what? They might not be. Relatively. That's what I learned. And it's not funny, but it is. Because it's true. It's like we know when people are listening or hearing us more than when they're not. But the problem is why do we suffer so much when they seem not to be? Or maybe they are and we would perceive that they're not. The point is it's emotional. If you look, and that if you look deeper, it's the repression, and you haven't heard yourself on all your emotions yet. You haven't been seen. You ever felt yourself saying, they don't see me. He just doesn't see me. You don't see yourself yet, what you've buried. So that sense of lack comes up. It's connected to everything there in relationship. I can imagine you know how it's connected to chronic pain because of my story. I didn't meet my need of feeling and expressing a natural resource, anger, and I stored that in chronic pain. But we could go on and on. I mean, science says it's behind everything, but we want to link it, though, not just to science says, but how I hold it in my body. What is the repression? And then what are the programs that are connected to my suffering from it, right? Which is, I think, one way to do this work. You could just come here if you wanted and just work on this sense that your needs aren't being met by people and go super deep because it's connected right to the repression. And once you learn 3D, it's like this amazing tool. I'll just leave you with this. Give me a couple of minutes just to imagine this. If you have a really powerful inquiry process like 3D, which is different than the one we did, the one we did is good too, but not as good as the 3D or as effective. And just imagine, though, when you just become more conscious in your life, you're not only living as the awareness, but you're embodying that. So there are layers of stuff transmuting, and the clarity is more and more so that you can see, oh, there again, I'm looking to get my needs met. You start spotting it more and more. Oh, there's that trigger. He's not hearing me. Oh, they don't support me. Oh, they don't love me. Oh, she's not paying attention. And you just really notice it. And every time you notice it, you go straight to meeting your own needs through the 3D inquiry, which means straight to processing that contraction skillfully. And that does take skill, though. But just imagine, though, what would happen if you weren't seeking that from people in the same way. What would happen is you would be yourself. Like you would have been if you were a kid and you would have met your own needs. You would have developed into just being yourself and not suffering. But welcome to Earth, right? Thank you for listening. And so you've actually taken a repression test today if you've sat with me and written things down. So you might have some sense of what your primary repression is on your paper, and that can get you started. If you need to know where the resources are, you can go to Kiloby.com and scroll down to the bottom of the page and take the longer repression test, and then we'll send you resources to help. The other thing is just to come into the members area. Go to Kiloby.com. This is where we're all doing the 3D work. I also mentor people, so you can join a mentorship program with me directly, one-on-one or a group, and I will show you how to do it. The skills. Let's see, is that it? That's basically it. Thank you for listening. Oh, one more thing. We have a retreat coming up in May in which we're going to do the 3D inquiry for the first time with people in the public. It's truly for the first time. I don't remember doing it with anybody outside of the members area or mentorship or sessions. And so this is a first, and the four main trainers and the two co-developers, me and Dan, all four of us are going to be together leading this retreat. So I'm going to put a link to that retreat, as I've been doing lately, in the comments or the description. Check that out. It's a great way to just come and learn it all in a multi-day online retreat, actually. Thank you.